Hello and welcome. You're viewing the Citizens Journalist podcast, Mesa County Compass, that brings you the news that you can use from a different point of view. I'm Ruth.
I'm Lisa.
And together we are Mesa County Compass. Our goal is to create an informed, current, active citizenry armed with the facts. We will be covering what's new to you, what it means to you, what you can do about it, and provide you access to the decision makers when we can. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mesa County Compass. We have with us today Alan Moore, who is actually John Q. Public, but is quite concerned and involved with the new Palisade Sewer District and what they're going to do to private property rights. Alan, can you give us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got in this fight?
Mm-hmm. And what the situation is, that who should control the poop?
Well, like everybody, this is not a fight I went looking for or wanted. It started with a letter from the engineer, or actually the town, but they had the engineer's name included in it, JUB Engineering, and they were informing me that because they are going to decommission their sewer system, or their sewer treatment system, to be more accurate, that they were going to be putting a pipeline to Clifton to carry that. And, by the way, we intend to run it across, you're on a property we would like to run it across and want permission to put a surveyor on there, and I refused any permission for them. I did talk to the engineer, and what I learned from him I was not real comfortable with. Everybody's been very nice to talk to, as you would expect, but it bothered me that way they were going about it. Factors including that is that they didn't include the landowners anywhere along the route in the discussion, except for maybe those directly in town. They say, well, we held meetings, but certainly, do you go to meetings in Eagle, Colorado? Probably
No,
not. Mm-hmm. We don't go to every town meeting there is. We have no need. We're not in the town.
Right.
When he got talking about how they were going to lay the pipeline, that threw up some concern. After all, it was going to be 15-inch, and it was going to be tested to 5 psi, and I'm thinking that's a pretty poor standard. Would not trust that.
Okay. Couple questions. So the town of Palisade, how have they currently been dealing with their waste that they want to change this, and when did they contact you, and how soon are they planning on making changes?
So
I always do 4 or 5 point questions. It's a rule.
That'll give you some time.
Yeah. I know people, I was thinking that I first heard they had problems with their treatment plant back in the early 80s, and yet I had a fella, long timer in the area, say, no, that's been a problem since as long as I can remember, which probably puts it at 77. And they have done a little bit of maintenance and a little bit of expansion, but they're using a lagoon-style treatment plant. They have impellers out in the water that keep the water stirred up and keep microbial activity going.
Okay.
And then they are discharging out into the river, and so the water goes out into a device that spreads it out, or I should say the effluent goes out into the river in a device that spreads it out across the river, so it's not just a pipe dumping out in one spot. So it does help dilute it a little bit to do that. I guess I first heard about it when I got that letter, and I'm thinking that was around the 1st of October, somewhere in there. It might have been late September, but I don't have that in front of me.
Sure. Oh, no. I just wondered how much notice they'd given, and So this treatment plant that they have, how is it different than, you said that they're going to ship that down to Clifton. What does Clifton have to treat it that's better than what Palisade had?
Well, what Clifton has is a more modern, state-of-the-art plant, just like Persego Wash is. Just Uray is building one. I understand Gunnison has built one. Fruta has done a real nice job. And they are intaking the effluent and turning it around in less than 24 hours. And it's treated, meeting the specifications required, and going out into the river then.
So it's not safe drinking water, but it's not, what's the difference in the water that they're putting in the river from Palisade versus what Persego puts in?
Well, so I guess we better back up just a step, is that the EPA is saying lagoon treatment systems are no longer going to be acceptable. I have not seen any data, but I did have a former city councilman tell me that one of the things is that it puts a bit of ammonia out into the river, and some other things that are not good for the aquatic life.
Okay.
And you are correct. I'm going to bet that neither one of you would raise your hand to drink a glass of it, of the treated at Clifton water, or take a bath in it. It is treated. It does meet specs at current standards, but it is not something that you would enjoy that way.
No.
And
When to come out of Rudy Reservoir. Yeah.
Standards change regularly.
Right.
So that also gives rise to a little angst, if you will.
Absolutely. It is, because they do change, and it's kind of hard to tell the EPA no.
Right.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
Okay, so they definitely do need something different in Palisade.
I agree with that, for sure.
And so your biggest claim is that really they should provide their own treatment plant that addresses the town of Palisade's needs rather than transporting that through private property to Clifton, and the costs and everything of that. So when they approach you, what are your biggest concerns about this whole project?
Well, the first is that it does affect property values.
Mm-hmm. How does it affect property values?
One neighbor that's a real estate agent has already been contacting appraisers, and she tells us that they're like, oh yeah, they do that. It will drop the property values. It will be factored in there. I should point out that we're not allowed to tie in. Nobody's allowed to tie in on this in the buffer zone area, and so not too many people are raising their hands and say, could I please have a raw sewage line run across my property?
Right.
Another thing is leakage. They do fail. Little over 20 years ago, one failed on 26th Road that caused the Grand Valley Canal to blow out. And with the standards I was told the way they were putting it in, I would have great concerns, especially because all through that area, and realistically from around 32 Road back to maybe half a mile west of Palisade, that is pretty much a high water table area. And in fact, recent construction in Clifton itself, they've had some major problems there around the roundabout and the fire station. And so that's a good example that you have it at different depths, and people say, well, it's water coming from behind Mount Garfield even that's coming this way. So
even though we live in a desert and it looks like a desert, down about 3 feet, it's not so much desert.
So the water table being high would be a problem for the sewer pipes because, and I'm just taking this from, I think most people don't have a clear understanding of sewage and how a sewer system works, or, because you don't need to. You just go, if I flush the toilet or run water down the drains, it's gone and yay.
So my dad was an engineer, and one of the things he taught me about is a little term called piping. And if you don't have good seals around pipe you lay, water will take to following that. And it can erode out and cause some pretty good cavities around there.
Okay.
That's why canals fail, highways fail. I would say foundations on houses could eventually fail because of that. Another thing is that even going across the neighbor's place to the west, they had to install a French drain around their place just because the field above, when they watered, it was coming down, obviously 5-6+ feet in the ground, maybe a little deeper yet, and getting into their basement. And so they're anytime you're changing how the water is naturally flowing,
Okay.
you have a question mark there. Sewer line, they typically install it with a bit of a gravel around it, a finer gravel, but it is not a tight seal. And so there is that potential. That is one of the problems on it. Another is I work pretty hard to try to be more holistic on how I'm farming, doing practices that actually the field uses less water than it normally has. I've also done things to encourage soil health. You go lay a pipeline like that through there, that is going to have an effect on it. And even if it's on my property or across the fence on the neighbor's property, you are changing the flow of the water and the pH, and it's that does affect how plants uptake things. So that is a reason. It's just a smaller reason, but it is part of it. Biggest thing is why do they need to go bother anybody's private property rights without a greater good? And the greater good is to build their own plant. So back to your question on building, or I should say consideration on building the plant and the need. Clifton, I talked to one of their board members, and he said, well, it'll cost them to keep it staffed. And well, except for you can contract with Clifton and run it all by telemetry anymore, to where they can monitor it all and you're not double staffing and somebody can check. So it is possible to do it. They run entire oil fields out of Oklahoma that are 1,000 miles away using telemetry.
Maybe you had to explain what telemetry is.
It'd be the use of sensors, cameras, computers to operate a plant from a remote station.
Okay.
And so, you can do those things and still somebody can drive out as needed. Clifton is not 1,000 miles away.
Right, 5. Should be able to make that.
So
on their electric bike. No, I'm sorry.
The thing that I've heard the argument on, and you've told me some of that, was the fact that Palisade has already gone ahead and gotten a grant from the USDA to do all of this before actually meeting with the people that it affects, and that troubles me. And after talking to you yesterday, we did get together and did some driving and looking at what was available and what ideas there were and different tracks that it could go, that kind of thing. After talking to you yesterday, I'm thinking that they need to rethink that, and even if they cannot use the USDA monies for a private sewer plant, there are other routes to go. We do
Absolutely.
have the ability of going through the EPA to come up with 75% of it we read.
Well, I think
funding.
it's 49%. The
49. I'm
75 was an older law back in 72.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, come up with part of that funding, and I think that the difference in what they would have to pay to Clifton versus what they could use for themselves might make up the difference in the cost of this plant. So am I wrong there, or correct
No,
me
you are right. You're correct that they have stated they've already received a grant.
Oh, they've already received it even.
Yes.
Although I don't know what qualifications they have to meet. They've just been approved is about the best impression I got from their letter.
Mm-hmm.
So they're I wonder if there aren't things they have to do to meet that they do get paid. But I haven't got that far yet on looking into it.
But this is supposed to take place fairly soon, right?
The engineer is saying end of March they plan to be 30% engineered. The route will be set. And from there on out, it's just finishing up the engineering and getting all the work done as far as easements and that to get through it all.
So what they would be saying to you then, it looks like, is that they will use yours and say, well, we're taking eminent domain on this property, and so that's an easement. We're going to use that easement, whether you approve of that or not.
That is true. Whether it's my property, a neighbor's property, anybody along the route, they do have to either get the property owner to agree and sell it to them, or they have to go to court and take it by eminent domain. And so you have under the what I would term as malfeasance, because the councils have kicked the can down the road for 40 plus years, they are using that as a reason to go do a takings on others.
Because they've created an emergency, and now their emergency is your problem.
That is the way it is looking. And another thing I'd point out, there's one fella I know of for sure. He has conservation easement on his property, but yet they can go in and condemn the property and install a pump station. So they are installing a pump station at 34 and F Road area. And they're saying they're going to be about 15 feet deep. And that, again, you get into the groundwater thing. That will get interesting right in there. But because I think the canal, would you say, is probably about 6-7 foot deep in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And another issue is that their plan is to, from about the was that 36 and 1/10 road, or no? Am I right? Yeah, about that area.
Yes.
Where you would turn in the west way to go in, where they hold the Bluegrass Festival and all that. They will be on the north side of the canal, and so they're going. The landowners own to the bottom of, or to the center line of the canal, unless there has been some glitch when title work was done. But that's what's normal for them, is that they own. And the Grand Valley Canal, they have I may be using the wrong term, but an overarching easement through there. In other words, they can control anything they need in that width through there, so that they can do water delivery, maintenance, any construction they need to do. But the town has already stated that they're going along that way. They have not presented, unless it's been recent, they have not presented Grand Valley Canal with any operating agreement or request or anything. It's we're going to use your north bank along through there. So.
Yes, and Alan and I drove it yesterday, and that is directly beside the canal, and we can see it flagged all the way up through there. It just looks to me like they've gotten the cart before the horse. That's my personal opinion.
I think that's a very good way to state that, because it's like, yeah, we had our meetings, so have a nice day. I see a lot of problems if they have any failures there that can affect the canal.
So why do you think they're choosing this route? Just because they've got this problem, they've got to come up with some sort of solution, and they've got some grant money to take care of it, and even if it's not the best solution, it gets that problem
out of their hair.
Down the road again.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much at that level. I don't know how many of the board members really have much experience with laying sewer line. And yes, I have done a little bit of that, and actually in Grand Junction. So I do know a little on it, how it's laid. We've looked at other routes. They could avoid going through several places for sure by just staying on the Grand Valley Canal. The problem being is, again, you are on private property. In other words, the Grand Valley Canal does not own the ground. They have an easement. And so there's more of that. The engineers are concerned the Grand Valley Canal does not have enough slope going downhill to make the raw sewage pipeline flow correctly. So I took a little liberty and talked to a company in town that's well known for pumps, and they tell me, yeah, it's no problem. We can pump sewage downhill. We can pump it uphill. Where do you want to pump it? That's a 15-inch pipeline, no problem. How about a 24? No problem. We can do that. And if they're already installing the pump, they're going to pump it up F Road to about 34 Road. And so it's going to be under pressure all through there. So they have identified that, yes, they can use a pump to pressure it up to push it somewhere.
Now, when you say they have identified, are you talking about the town of Palisade has identified?
JUB engineers.
The engineers.
The engineers have determined that.
By their action. They haven't verbally stated it, but if somebody is planning on an action of that nature and they are telling landowners that here's where we're going to install the pump, that indicates for that, I would say. But there's been no verbal or written confirmation of that. But yeah, that's their plan. So and then you're running a pressured sewer line for a mile up a Mesa County road. I understand, again, from talking to Scott May, that
and tell us who Scott May is.
With the county, and I forget his exact position, but he's over a bit of the utilities.
Okay.
And I do recall him saying if they want to run it up a county road, we really can't stop them because that is a public right-of-way. But I don't know what they can do as far as engineering requirements, installation requirements. I guess that's out in the future. And
so is the decision coming from just the Palisade City Council or the county, or where is this decision being made?
The decision on routing?
Right. And well, the decision on this, that we want to take it down here as opposed to building our own sewer plant in the town of Palisade. Have they even looked at any places where they could build a plant, and why wouldn't they build their own plant?
Okay. So
again, 3 questions.
Well, and hopefully I remember them all. But between the letter that they sent and talking to the engineer, it was my understanding that it is the town of Palisade, the town board is just going to be following JUB engineers' recommendations. And so if they say it will go here, that's the route they're going to approve, is the understanding I got.
But I'm saying, so it is the town's decision.
At the end of the day, it is the town decision. They will likely be following recommendations from the engineers.
Right.
But they can say, let's look at this closer, let's reconsider, let's let's check this out and see if maybe we can do the right thing. Can we do a better job? They do have
Question
it.
for you. You said that, or maybe I misunderstood, or maybe I understood it from somebody else. Did the EPA condemn this current system?
So my understanding is that the EPA has not condemned the current system. They have just stated that all lagoon systems will be going away.
Okay, so there's time.
There is time, and I'm wanting to say, is it 2027 or 28, somewhere in
I
there?
heard 27. That's,
okay,
you know,
that,
but I didn't affirm that. But, so that gives the city of Palisade some wiggle room to actually sit down to the table with everybody involved and try to hash out something that'll work. And you and I, like I said, went out yesterday and took some driving around. We went down to the lagoons.
Yes.
We found an area, or you showed me an area that's right beside the existing lagoons. It's 3+ acres there, that this could actually be set up on. The sewer system could actually be set up on, and should have plenty of room for what they're trying to do, and still be able to disperse that sewage into the river and give it more time to flow downstream to cleanse itself, whatever's left,
Absolutely.
that kind of thing. So to me, it's practical to do that. And if the EPA will grant at least a portion of that and possibly loan forgiveness on a portion of that bill, why not?
I think your point's very solid there. I think another point that wasn't made that dovetails in is if they are discharging the water up there, that's the critical part of the critical 15-mile reach. So the more water they can keep in the river at that point, everything helps. You are trying to recover 4 endangered species of fish and have been for a number of years, and so that's why that is critical fish habitat. Pike minnow, bony-tailed chub, razorback sucker, humpback chub, I believe
I
is
believe
the
it's
four.
in that too, yes.
And so the more that they can keep in there, and as she said, that gives the river time to work it over a little bit. It's
flowing over rocks and
absolutely
right.
Aerating itself, yeah.
And like she had said, she talked about the acreage that is there available. We took pictures, and I think of how the size of, say, Durango's sewer treatment plant, and I think Durango's a bit bigger than Palisade,
I would say so.
and
Right.
it looks to me like it would fit there quite easily. And then you can reclaim the sewer lagoons. You've got room. Current part of that, a very small part, but part of that area there they were referencing has a bike skills park, and so it's got some neat jumps and things, and cool. People enjoy the bikes. They also have an area there. The town has been putting dump truck loads of asphalt
Waste
or dirt.
asphalt and concrete.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that area right in there, just alone would, it appears to me, would fit. But the sewer lagoons, once you reclaim them, you've got all that property to build out an amphitheater if you wanted. You could build expanded bike skills park. There's a lot of recreational opportunities by doing it that way.
And actually would beautify the area, because the area is a little dumpy. Let's
Yes.
face it.
Yes, it is.
And for the city of Palisade to have that on its record, I think would be a plus, to have a clean amphitheater, bike park, the whole 9 yards there, rather than what they have there at this particular moment.
I would agree. And another thing, I think that because we had been, and have we covered the plant and the need for the plant and the location fairly well? I think that location also works because it is lower elevation than anywhere in town, so you're not really having to pump it uphill. So I think that's
You
another.
lose having to put in those several $1,000 pumps in order to get that done, and you wouldn't have to fight the groundwater. There's so much advantage to that, as cost saving, if you will.
You don't get as much electric bills if you're
Not using a pump. Yeah.
So you still obviously use pumps in any sewer treatment plant,
Right.
but as far as you're not having to move it, because you're down at river level or very close to it, and so river elevation. On the pipeline itself, if they absolutely have to, and there is, let's just go with the scenario that somehow or another there is no way they can come up with to not do a pipeline to Clifton. And we looked at that route yesterday. So the Mount Garfield Middle School, they have a pipeline, and it is pumped, and they do send it up to Clifton. And it runs on the north side of US 6 and 24. And if you're going to be putting it on a pump and pressuring it up to send it there, you're not having to deal with deep depths. That'd be you could potentially install that with a smaller excavator than if you're having to dig down to deep depths. And so you're right there alongside the highway. I get it, but the point being is from about 34 and 3/4 area. There's not actually a county road there, but between 34 and 35 and closer to 35, they are sending it to Clifton already. And that route would be, if you ran it up on the west side of town, it would only be affecting the railroad and the highway. And yes, I guess you would have to cross under a couple of utilities. There are some there, but there sure looked like where the utilities are, there would be room enough to put the pipeline.
Well, it kind of seems to me that the EPA might be concerned with the environmental effect of the putting it on farmland, where you have that potential for environmental damage versus in an area where you're not talking about human food consumption or that sort of thing. That may be of interest to EPA, saying, well, why aren't you looking at a different route?
I think what we're basically boiling it down to here is the fact that the city of Palisade needs to, the town of Palisade, however they want to be referred to themselves, need to actually sit down to the table with all of the people involved in this particular project and hash out something that would be to the benefit of all rather than for the benefit of a few. So that's what I'm advocating for at this point, that they need to get everybody notified, sit down at the round table and hash it out.
And so what plan could you have? Because I know, Ruth, you put on Facebook some ideas for what people could do. So maybe you can share your ideas. You can share your ideas of what's going on and how you can have an impact. And I think also that people feel like if the town represents them, not just comes in and makes a decision and says, this is what we're doing for you, and we haven't looked at all the different options, or we haven't notified the affected parties that, maybe we need to take a step back. And that would be good government.
That would be, yes. And I would advocate getting a hold of the town of Palisade and asking them why this is taking place and why they haven't had a meeting, and if they could have a meeting. There are a phone number, and I don't have all of that kind of information available, but I will put it on a separate codicil addition to this particular broadcast, because I've got photos to put up, and I will put that on as well, so that people can go ahead and be notified as to how they can get involved and how they can help.
And I sure agree with her. On our website, rawsewage-palisade.com, we have a lot of the contact with the town on there. And then I think it's always good to talk to your county commissioners on it.
And what role do the county commissioners have in this?
I think they can set a little bit of a tone and make some encouragement for the town of Palisade to do the right thing, and that's what I would ask them to do.
Have you talked to any of the county commissioners?
We were slated, when we met with, the day we were slated to meet with Scott Bay, Bobby Daniel actually set up the meeting, and Scott kept looking around and checking his watch, and he said she should be here. She set up the meeting. But Bobby was a no-show, and I have received no contact from her since then, and I have no idea anything behind that. So
If she just
in
forgot
that
or-
respect,
yeah.
I just got an email today asking the city of Palisade or the Palisade residents to get together to meet with Bobby Daniels on the last Friday of this month. I believe it's the 26th, at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is a little inconvenient for a lot of folks, but nonetheless, they're having a sit down with the city of Palisade and to voice some concerns, not necessarily on this issue, but on all issues. So I would recommend people plan around anything they have to do to get to that meeting.
that would be very good. I think everybody you can contact. I'd like to know what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says about this. What does the USDA really say, and what is the full story on their grant? And it's odd that the USDA is giving grants that are harmful to rural areas or parts. I think another thing that would be good is for the county commissioners to have the question before them is really, what is the buffer zone? And yes, we realize you have to have a certain size acreage. There is no sewer service available in the buffer zone, and everybody likes it that way. You can just have your farm and be happy. But it's the fact that this has more power than a conservation easement or the buffer zone has. They can, just run it through there. So that is a good question too. Let's have some definitions. And
Well, I think that Janet Rowland talked to us about buffer zones, and that there's one going from Clifton to Palisade, and there's one going from Junction to Fruita, and it limits the number of the size of those, how much development, right? Isn't that right, Ruth? And so, I think they might have it defined, and I think you're right on that they don't provide any of those things. You have a leach field or septic tank and that sort of thing on your property, right?
Go ahead.
I'm asking.
Which, by the way, in that buffer zone, speaking of water tables, 99% of those sewers or septic systems are above ground because of the water table.
And yeah, I know they do have to do some different things on a lot of them, for darn sure. But I get, I guess with the county there, it's like, well, the town of Palisade decided they have the town trustees or board members decided that they have a problem, and they've dealt with this, pushing the problem out into the buffer zone. Because again, nobody has said.
And what rights do the buffer zone have?
Nobody raises their hand and says, we'd love to have a raw sewage pipeline from Palisade. It'd almost be as good as having one from Aspen.
Yeah.
I don't think you see that happening. Oh yes, we'd love to have all the construction issues and all the problems with it. That'd be great. And I want to make this point, is that I don't believe that most of the town of Palisade's residents, if they really got a minute to look at this, would say, oh yeah, we're great. That'd be great, because we ride their bikes past here all the time. And we want to be right by their raw sewage system. I think most of the town residents are busy with their lives and don't get to keep track. They're trusting the people they elect.
Right.
And when issues like this come up, I think they just want to go about their lives, and
Right.
that's fair enough. But I don't think most of them want to cause damage to surrounding areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do want to make the point that I don't believe that it's the average.
Vindictive or
Town
let's take
Palace.
advantage of you.
There's a lot of good people in that town. I mean, I grew up around there, but I don't think that all of them. I think a good portion of them would look at this and say, "No, I wouldn't want that done to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't want to do that to somebody else."
Bottom line is they just need to stop and rethink.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is the best possible solution, then so be it.
And inform people
But-
as to why that's the best solution, why they chose this, what other alternatives there were that they considered, and why they determined that this was the only solution that they could use. Because,
then-
again, if people understand why and how it benefits everybody,
Then there's no argument.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the plain and simple of it.
The people along the route have received no consideration, not from the county, not from the town of Palisade, not from the Clifton sewer treatment plant. It's just, oh, we decided this, and there it is. And I kind of would like, I realize you could go down a rabbit trail with this, but I think this is a good chance to set a positive tone for the town of Palisade, because they have been kicking the can down the road. We've pretty easy to establish that. I did see one post a guy had put on Flakebook that said that it was an inherited problem and they've been working on it ever since. Well, hold it. What do you mean? Did you immediately raise the rates? Did you immediately stop issuing new permits? What did you do? But it doesn't seem to come through. And getting on Palisade's website, you find that they have spent $22,000 for a new side-by-side ATV, so with snow tracks, so that they can get up to their reservoir, because there is an issue with concerns over failure up there. So if it just becomes a common habit, can we kick the can down the road on this? Where else can we kick it down the road?
No, that's another issue entirely.
And so, but I guess I'd like to see that we have an attitude of, let's go ahead and do the right thing. And they seem to have money. One person stated that they had spent $121,000
So I understand.
on barriers that you can put up on streets during festivals. City Grand Junction, I had one of their policemen tell me they looked at those and they said, yeah, they work. They're great. They do everything they say. They are effective. For that kind of money, we'll deal with it another way.
Right.
And that's a bigger City Grand Junction, a little bit bigger, and they're watching their money a little better. So.
So what would you like people to do that are watching this? What can they do to help, and by when do they need to do that?
I think the best time to do it is yesterday.
Okay,
I
but they
think-
can't. They got to start today or tomorrow when we put it on.
Yeah, we are running up against time limits on this, end of March. And I would say that the more that they can contact the town and say, let's look about a different route, like up to Highway 6 and 24, or let's do the right thing and build your own plant. I had one business owner in Palisade actually tell me that'd be the best thing they could do, is to build their own, so that they're in control of it. But I'm always thankful. We've had a petition out. Virtually everybody that's looked at it has signed it, and very quickly. I like people getting daylight on this, because, as they say, daylight is the best sanitizer, which is what you guys are doing right here with this. And with them not telling anybody, I mean, did you see it on any of the 3 TV stations? Have you seen any reporting on this?
No.
I haven't.
Yeah.
And
You were
I-
impacted, so you were looking.
Well, yeah, and just I do watch the news.
There was an article here some time ago from the Daily Sentinel that was addressing something about it, but I don't remember when it was. Late last year. But that's all I know that's come out about it at all, and it was kind of innocuous. So
I listen to a lot of radio. I haven't heard much on there, but maybe there has been, and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And but it has definitely been kept very quiet. The only reason I found out,
It's a letter.
Well, and I have at a later date, I was in a restaurant and talking to a fella that was a couple of years ahead of me in high school at Palisade, mind you, and he sits on the board for the Clifton sewer plant, and I found out some things from him, but it's like you're not finding out what's really going on in government very easy, and I get it. It's a lot more fun to talk about festivals and doing fun things like that. But this is an issue that would be best handled on Palisade ground.
Okay.
well, thank you very much, Alan, for coming and joining us and trying to get this issue out to the public. We hope to do a follow-up and hope that things have changed in a month or so.
Yep, before March.
Before March, yes.
Well, you've been watching Mesa County Compass. This is the truth as we see it, the facts as we know them. You decide.
And I would like to be taking some time to be very thankful to these ladies for doing this. I'd like to be thankful for folks that stand for the Constitution. They're paying attention. I'd like to be thankful to everybody that's been passing the information around, signing petitions, making calls, posting on social media. It is a big help, and I believe that the reach of this will go beyond just people along the route of this pipeline. But if they can do this to those people, what is it they can't do to everybody else?